Thanks, listeners, for joining us today. Elko Live on this Wednesday features our guest from Elko County. It's time for an Elko County update with John Karr and Commissioner Karr. We're in between meetings, so it's a kind of a nice chance just to catch up and remind people to get out and vote.
There you go. Exactly. I was writing a letter to the editor, and that's actually my very last quote of your vote does matter, and if you don't vote, you're right. It doesn't count if you don't vote. So. And I actually used Joe Lombardo as our prime example. If this voting is so rigged and everything else, then how come he was able to beat Governor Sisolak? There you go.
Right, because obviously it would have been rigged in favor of the other Democrats. So, yeah, the Dem. So, John, I mean, that's part of... People often sit out primary elections, right? We know that's a reality, but there's some important local races that will be decided.
You know, one of the things I've said to and asked a couple of my employees, and I was very, very clear on this. I don't care if my employee is an independent, a Democrat, or Republican. I don't care. But one of the things I do tell them is in Elko County, it is actually smarter to register as a Republican because so many candidate primaries are Republican only, and that's what determines the race. So it doesn't matter, once again, if your beliefs are a Democrat or whatever, but to be able to truly vote in this community, I think you need to register Republican. But that's just...
It is reality. You're right.
Yeah, this is what it is.
I mean, and I'm not saying that way, one way or another, but yeah, if you're a Democrat and you open your ballot and you say, well, there's really not much on here.
Yeah, I get to vote for the teachers or the school district because that's that doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat,
nonpartisan.
Whatever. Nonpartisan, excuse me. Thank you. But the other ones, the clerk, the county commission, those other races are partisan, so you don't get to vote in them.
So again, and it's not too late to register to vote. That's still
Correct.
Going on. You can register up to the day of the election, too.
Correct.
On the day. Yeah. So
now that's once again the state. I don't want to hear about how corrupt that is, whatever. That's a state decision, and if you want to change that, then become an assemblyman or a state senator, and you can change that.
You can work on that, obviously. And there are advantages and drawbacks depending on which party is in control. So that's really...
every time they seem to change something, it then swings back in favor of the other side, and then they, of course, complain and all that. And, well, you're the one that put it in, so... That's standard both ways.
So it must be something that favors your party. So Nevada's Secretary of State, Francisco Aguilar, who does happen to be a Democrat, one of those elected positions, the previous Secretary of State was a Republican, so I think it's important to make that distinction, right? Because some of the accusations about the election, being fraudulent came under the direction of her office. And she was a Republican. So there is new guidance about election night results, and that means a timeline in which on 8 a.m. on election day, county clerks and registrars can actually start tabulating the early voting returns and the mail ballot returns. Now, whether or not they can announce the results, but at least they'll have those soon after the polls close.
Correct.
So that'll be a nice difference because it just seems like lately we're just waiting and waiting and waiting, and most people go to bed and then maybe the next day they'll find out, and then even then if some things are challenged, it comes trickling in.
Ours in Elko is usually not as much on the mail in, but I don't know, the mail as well as I do. They ship it to Utah and then back and whoever else, so I don't know how long, but ours usually the percentage is not enough that it makes a big difference.
Yeah, in fact, that's being contested, I think, a legal challenge of whether or not those mail-in ballots, because they can trickle in for several days. But if it's a clear margin, so for example, by 6 p.m. on Election Day, and this is going to apply to both the June primary and the November general, but by 6 p.m., county clerks and registrars can provide the first election results to the Secretary of State's office for verification and quality assurance. Again, whether or not we announce those results, John, because you don't want to discourage someone from voting if the polls close at 7 and they just say, oh, forget it. My candidate didn't
That's
win.
actually been a big debate throughout the whole United States because let's say all of a sudden the whole East board has already said, hey, we already voted for the coming one. Let's just say Biden because it's one coming up. Well, why even bother? It's already won. Well, so that is one of the debates on when they should be announcing, but I still think how we're doing this will be fine.
Yeah, because you don't want to discourage people. And then once county clerks and registrars confirm all the polls are closed and the last voter voted, the Secretary of State's office will release the unofficial results. So there's our answer. So again, I guess we'll still be waiting around past 7 o'clock, obviously.
And, the state clerks is very, very similar to the county clerks. They're extremely meticulous on following the law, but they have very, very little input on truly creating the law. That's still by the legislature, and that's how it is. So they have to be almost attorney or accounting style on following the law. But once again, they don't get to be the people making up the law.
So early voting is underway. So you can go to the Elko County library, whatever you prefer to call it, and cast your ballot if you're registered. And if you have a mail-in ballot, take that with you, and you can just surrender it there, right? You can vote in person.
Especially if you have the doubts, or if you could hand it to them, your mail-in, only hand it that way to them. You feel better if you don't trust the mail or whatever the excuse is. There you go. Just hopefully you vote.
Yes. And again, it runs through June 7th, so Friday, June 7th. The actual election day is Tuesday, June 11th. And we actually heard from at least one candidate during our local candidate forum, John, who thinks that, all voting should be done all in one day, and that's it, and then hand-counted ballots.
Well, we'll tackle those one at a time. The hand counting ballots, they did a trial run a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember, it was Thursday or Friday, a few weeks back, and followed the state guidelines. Now, if they want to make excuses that the state guidelines were wrong, once again, we don't have a choice in that. That's what the state said. It has to be done this way. Well, anyway, they did that trial run and didn't get through even 25 ballots that matched on their tally sheets after 2.5, 3 hours. So in my mind, it was a complete failure. And I don't think those people were doing anything wrong. I just think the human mind is not that meticulous, nonstop, dink, 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 dink. We're broad thinkers, and that's why you have a computer that does the simple tabulate, because all it is scanning it, reading it. It's not thinking. It's just a one.
Is that a hanging chat?
Yeah.
Right.
So it doesn't surprise me. It turned out that poorly. I'm glad they tried it and just proved how long it will take and how just tedious. That's the better word. How tedious it really is. It's very similar to when we did the audit 2 years ago off the Dominion machines. It's very, very tedious, and it's very easy to. You even say, all right, Trump. Governor Joe, whoever, and you've got your little tally sheet and miss one, and that tally, that's as easy to make that mistake. So I will 100% adamantly stand up and disagree with anybody who thinks hand counting paper ballots, 100% nonsense, and to my mind, that trial run proved it. As for the voting that day, I don't. It used to be you had to apply to do an early ballot. When I was off in college, I couldn't obviously come to Elko and vote, and so I had applied for that. I could see the point of doing that, but I also just see the point. All right, you have your mail-in ballot and you mail it in. I wish there was I don't know if you got to fingerprint it or something else to verify it, but overall, that's once again the law, and I wish they wouldn't have put it in during COVID. It really looks sketchy that was an emergency thing that had to be done during COVID. But once again, that's the law, and that's how it is. And unless we go vote and put a bunch of Republicans in the old governor, well, definitely in the governor's office, but in the legislature, it's not going to change.
And of course, what Commissioner Karr is talking about is the mail-in ballots. That was an emergency measure that was introduced during COVID, and instead of allowing that to expire, rolling it back, they simply enacted a law that said now we'll conduct voting by mail as well. So hence the controversy. So
correct.
In addition to in-person, we have early voting, we have mail balloting. So it does get confusing, John. And then obviously some people, although I think the polls indicate that more than 60% of Nevadans, so this is less a partisan issue, but more than 60% of Nevadans do favor a form of ID when you go to vote in person.
So I don't understand the rhetoric on not needing an ID, that it's somehow racist or against the poor or whatever. Everybody has an ID, but I don't understand that, so I don't even know how to argue it. But once again, you do need your ID to register to vote. It's just once you walk up, you don't need it. They instead check your signatures and see if they match, and that does happen.
Right. I was just going to say that. So that can work either way. You had to have an ID to register to vote, and here's my signature. I'm signing again in front of you so you can see that this is who I am. And so that's hence the argument. I mean, that you've already presented an ID once, but then the argument on the other side is, well, then just present your ID again. We present our IDs for all kinds of things, right? Yeah.
Want to go gamble, get tobacco, get alcohol. I guess they have now legal marijuana. All of those require an ID. Go
Right.
get my prescription, get my ID. Any of the government, whether Medicaid, Medicare, whatever, you still have to have your ID. So I don't know why voting is somehow discriminatory, but whatever.
So that will be, I believe, if enough signatures are gathered. I think groups now have a June deadline to get about 100,000 statewide, and it will be per district. They have to divide that up into representative districts, and then it'll be on the ballot, I think, to determine going forward if we present an ID.
The last I read, but we'll see where it goes.
Exactly. There's always some court challenge too,
Correct.
John, right? So anyway, early voting is underway. So you can do that in person. You can drop it in the mail, whatever's most convenient, but make sure you vote. Election day is on Tuesday, June 11th. So we're all gearing up for that. So impressions on that, really, that candidate forum got interesting, hosted by the Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs Committee at the Convention Center. A nice crowd of interested people on hand, and it seemed pretty, common, and there wasn't really anything too exciting until toward the end, when one of the candidates for county commission, well, actually, the incumbent Commissioner Rick Stenninger and his challenger for that seat, District 5.
Correct.
Yeah, in 5. It got a little testy between those two.
Well, let's just, so the one we're talking about is Chris Mullins, the crazy sign guy, and that's his words, not mine. Every answer, whether it be, are you qualified to what you change to whatever, is I'm a fighter, I'm for freedom, and I'm not bought. Just bizarre answers because I don't know what that means. If I'm bought, I sure don't see it in my checking account. I don't see a dime extra. But there was two rants though that were so bizarre. It was realtors are in control of Elko.
You said there was a cabal, right?
And then the weird signs or the noises made by the crosswalk when you push the little button, flashes, and so you walk across the street. That could sound like machine gun fire and cause PTSD. I think the whole audience kind of got quiet, going, "What the heck is he talking about?" That's about as bizarre. But then it finally got testy when he made some comment, and Rex goes, "Well, at least you figure out what district you're in," because he first was, I believe, trying to run against me in District 3, so I don't think it was a mistake. I just didn't realize I don't think he looked at the map close enough to know where he was located. But anyway, so then Rex started talking on his part, and then Chris started over talking to him. So then, of course, they got in the shut up exchange and kiss my bleep and whatever. And then Chris really got bizarre as Rex was looking at the moderator. He's got his phone out, taking a close-up picture of his head and stuff. It was just bizarre, going, what are you doing? So I don't know. If anybody rational votes for that guy, I really would like to know why, because it was bizarre.
Well, and I think the point in just kind of bringing it up too, John, is just sometimes people look at a ballot and they've not done a lot of research. They'll say, "Oh, this guy's been in a long time. I'm going to vote for change," because people often campaign, "Vote for change, vote for change." But what would that represent to Elko County if we got someone who was so sort of extreme in there?
Well, I wish I could even say what his extreme view is, but I don't even know what his view is. And I'm going to be writing a letter to editor, and one of the things it's going to be saying in there is, well, what would I make as that motion? So I'm sitting up there, and I'll be chair next year. If I'm making this motion or if I'm putting this on the agenda, what's even going to be the agenda item? No more being bought and no more unfreedom. What is that? It's like we were laughing last time, going, okay, end everything with world peace. Well, that sounds great, but what does that mean? What are you going to solve? So yes, it's just bizarre. I don't mind change too, but realistically, what does that mean? And going on to our clerks one of the things that they're jumping up now and screaming about is voter integrity and election integrity and what we're going to change. Well, you can't change it because it's the state law, and if you want to get in the state assembly or legislature, that's how you change it. But somehow going against the law and not doing your job here that's not the clerk's position, and that's not what you do. It's illegal, but also corrupt. So change in that position, I think is bizarre in itself too. And we already proved the paper ballots don't work. And that was not my group. That was that group themselves that did that test. So to me, I think Becky Plunkett's the obvious answer in that, because there you go. She got the experience, but also follows the law. It's a foolish campaign because it didn't work. And it's only probably 30-40% of the clerk's job is that paper ballot. It's the integrity afterwards, the voter rolls, but then also the judicial system. That's 60% of the clerk's job, is the judicial components of storing marriage licenses, the different criminal paperwork that the judges need. That's all by the clerk's office.
You're handling extremely sensitive information that pertains to just about every aspect of people's personal and private lives in Elko County.
Yeah,
Who do you
correct.
want to trust with that?
So I 100% do not think that's an on-the-job training position that you need to get thrown into. Someday getting hired on as the newbie, well, obviously somebody has to be hired on, but not the clerk itself.
Well, and again, the entire office, there's a lot of integrity that's contained within that office, and years and decades of experience. We see that that's often how the position has been held in Elko County. For example, if people want to just compare what happened in Nye County, I mean, that got completely overturned, upended over there, and that guy's not even the county clerk anymore. So he just came in and made a big mess and then left.
And that's another thing. It kept getting brought up in the commission meeting. They did not do paper hand counting ballots. Did they have you bring in your mail-in ballot that's made of paper? Yes, and it still then went through a scanning machine, and it's still made. I think there's a made by Dominion, might not be, but there's only 2 or 3 companies that are allowed in Nevada. So if it's not Dominion, it's the other one. Either way, it's still scanned by a computer. That's how it works. They did not hand count. So that is all garbage, baloney, hearsay. It did not happen.
So interesting choices that we have, not only locally, certainly, but as we get closer to the November election. But
well,
again,
then we still have the other commission seat.
Yes, you'd like to talk about
Brian Gale and Nikki Del Rio. I think Brian's very sincere. Seems like a nice man, and a little bit I know of him, but very inexperienced on just how government really can do what their role is locally. Where I thought Nikki had a whole lot more experience on the Wells City
she served
Council.
2 terms in the Wells City Council.
But then being on a coach, dealing with parents and all that, that's a whole nother round of learning. Being a teacher and being extremely active in Wells, I just think that's a better candidate choice over there.
It does seem like she would get the support of the Wells community, having been elected to 2 terms to Wells City Council. As you mentioned, a lot of involvement with parents and students, being a teacher in Wells, certainly, and she did have a greater grasp and understanding. I kind of compare it to when Cliff Eklund came from Carlin, right? He'd been on the council and served as mayor, and it's really important, John, to have representation from some of our rural cities, if you will.
Correct. No, and I think she'd be a great example and bringing just a different perspective. So I think she'd be fantastic on there. The only one that we didn't go over was the state Senate, and they didn't have that debate. I heard kind of rumor that Mr. Ellison was in Carlin at a rally or something. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know. All I know is it wasn't up for the debate, so I don't know what's going on there.
And I know Mr. Hochstetter, I think is his name, he has reached out here, and so it's just a matter of we had a holiday. He called over the holiday weekend, just trying to squeeze in to get some time with him. He's seeking District 19. I think there are 2 people from Southern Nevada. John Ellison, I think Mr. Ellison, frankly, is just very confident that he'll win the position for state Senate here because of Elko County's vote. He has a lot of name recognition, John. So I don't see him participate. Did he participate in the GOP's dinner, Republican dinner? Did he make remarks there?
He was there, but he did not speak. So, and once again, I don't know why he couldn't be there or not, and I don't know if there's a date, but it's only 2 weeks away, 2.5 weeks away that we're going to have the primary election. So I think
he's
there's really
just
time
choosing not to speak in front of the public. So I mean,
but
it just seems.
But the other candidate from Nye County, I don't believe ever came up though either, isn't it? Nye, the third candidate.
Yeah, I think there's. Is there a woman that's serving on the school board right now?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't know much about her at all.
Right. And again, it makes it difficult for us voting and choosing candidates because. Look how many hundreds of miles away that is, that
Correct.
We're looking at individuals from those communities that to serve this district. So that's really, that, if anything or nothing else, I guess, should be resolved. It's the redistricting issue, as we talked about before. Having a Waihe now included in the Reno Sparks district.
Yeah, that was
That was very deliberate.
It's funny, that was Democrat gerrymandering, and back east you hear about Republican gerrymandering. So once again, it's both teams.
We have to have independent committees do this stuff. This is just nonsense.
I would agree with that, but I don't know how you do that realistically. But secondly, it's still disappointing to me that the state Senate is also under that same kind of guidelines. I would rather the Senate be like our national Senate, that nope, these are how many you got, and that's where they're at, and that's all it is. Eventually, Vegas can just keep getting bigger, that whole southern area, and we'll even still get smaller in our voting importance. Our
rural region seat was divided that way, too. So now it's the difficulty of ever getting another rural Nevada region.
And that was built on one vote, basically thought process, one person, one vote. Well, our founding fathers said no. That's why the House is one vote, one person, but that's why the Senate is not. So you don't get the mob rule. Our founding fathers were geniuses how they really came up with this. It's too bad our state, and I don't remember when that law went to the state Supreme Court, but that's when they changed it.
So obviously, again, we want to encourage people to vote, to participate, so that you can help in these conversations and making changes in the future, because obviously we need a lot of work.
Well, Cortez Masto only lost by 6,000, or won, excuse me, let me correct that. Cortez Masto only won by 6,000 votes. And no, sure enough, I was even telling somebody that, well, Clark County just would have found another 6,000. That is complete garbage and baloney. We could have beat Cortez Masto if the rurals would have had a higher percentage of voting. That's just a fact. And so if we get out this time, whoever we vote for, Sam Brown, Tony Gray, whoever our candidate is, versus Senator Jackie Rosen, she could get defeated. But if nobody says, "Oh, it's rigged," and they stay home, guess what you get? Say,
it's not my train set, so I'm not going to play. But yeah. Talking with John Karr, Elko County Commissioner, and that might wrap up, a bit on the election. Again, the primary election, early voting's underway, leading up to the June 11th, Tuesday date. Early voting closes June 7th. So anything else on that you want to talk about? I know it's fresh in your brain right now.
No. Yeah, I've been stewing over quite a bit. That was quite the evening on the candidates forum. And some, once again, the rhetoric and nonsense is just bizarre to me. If you can't actually name what you're going to change and it's viable, once again, if I sit out here and go, Lori, you're full of baloney, world peace is what we need. Well, thanks.
Then what does that mean? We would start to drill down and say, well, what locally can we do to achieve world peace? So it's all politics or local. So, and that's all we try to do. And, in fact, I was just looking at the recent agenda for the Budget Committee, which I know you don't sit on that, but you end up with the end results of the Budget Committee meeting.
Right.
So we do know Elko Convention and Visitors Authority asked for a $3 million loan. Any idea on where that's sitting right now from your perspective?
I haven't talked to Demo or Rex on that. My perspective is we'll probably end up doing that. We have some, it also depends on how long. If we're talking 10 years, heck no, we're not going to be able to do it. But no, the convention center, come on, it's part of our community. We don't have a choice. They've got to make this payment. What a bizarre payment plan was set up years ago. And it's actually illegal now. The state legislature, even with this is so bizarre, we're not going to allow it again. But anyway, it's a building that's now part of our community. It's used a lot. So we need to make sure it continues to be successful and going forward. So, and it's a loan. We're not bailing it out. It is hardly taxpayer funded, the convention center, but the amount of money they bring in won't be enough to truly pay that off in the 3 years. So I think 3 years when it comes due.
Yeah, it's in 3, and she's already saved $3 of the $6 million. And
correct.
Yes, and in consideration of all the things like COVID, for example. So, do you think she's had to jump through a lot of hoops? I mean, I know she's been before commissioners, a couple times?
I don't think so. It's more just a clear path on what exactly it looks like. But no, I don't. And it should have went to the budget committee to begin with, just on that. So we could have made a decision. We could have made a decision in the commission meeting, but it's still better to really crack down on the budget committee, how that would work, what our payments look like, what, that kind of thing.
So this next one's kind of tough because we just talked about we care about our small communities. And the city of Carlin approached the budget committee for money for a splash pad, soundly rejected.
I'm not on there, and so please forgive me that part of this is speculation. But the 2 points that I've kind of, the little bird on your shoulder, a splash pad won't bring in people to move to your community. But secondly, there's some infrastructure problems in Carlin that seem a little higher on the priority that might need that money. The water infrastructure, sewer infrastructure, whatever, that aren't the, gosh, I'd like to have. They're the, no, you need to have.
Because it was a request from the city of Carlin, so they would know what their infrastructure needs are, John.
But also, we've done some ARPA money to like the Spring Creek, the Horse Palace, and some of these other things. But
and the fair and the horse racing.
Correct, all of that. But that was the one-time COVID shot stuff. We don't now have part of that property tax increment. We're not now a grant system. We have enough needs in the county that's now a county budget that we now need to fix our county problems. You'll look at the ambulance barn. It really fits the term barn. I mean, 5 ambulances sitting out in the weather. We still have our county main fire station. Now, that's 5, 6 fire trucks outside, and they don't do too well in the winter either. So no, we have needs. So no, the grant system for that from the ARPA will be coming to an end. In my mind.
And that's a good segue because we do have, and Commissioner Stenninger brought this up, it's one of his highlights. And during the campaign speech that he gave during the candidate forum, talking about the $15 million, this has nothing to do, by the way, with whether or not the community supports an event center or livestock arena. But the reality is the county has $15 million toward that one project.
We've set aside about $15 million to have it presented to us because it's totally changed, and it has not been brought back to us on the changes from when it was all one complex of the convention center, the event center, the rec center, and the fairgrounds. So no, it has not been voted on again since then. Okay,
but it will be coming back, and it seems like it's a done deal. Doesn't it feel like a done deal, John?
That train is definitely rolled down the tracks, but no, the brakes are not broken and it can't be stopped.
Okay.
Is that a nice way to put that?
There's a lot of cheerleading.
There's a lot of cheerleading.
Yes.
But
very popular.
But no, it has not been finalized. Once it's finalized, where it's going to be located, what it's going to look like, what's going on, then no, we'll go out to the public and see and the area it's at. Is it district that way or zoned that way, excuse me? All these different questions and how is this going to be set up and what's the fallback, the legal, the in-depth legal beagle stuff. We still have all of that to do. So right now, it's definitely a train down the track of concept, but that's it. It is right now. All right. And then on to the jail expansion. So Sheriff Narvaeza was on the program last week, and the budget committee gave him $25,000 for plans for the expansion. There's that last footprint to build out on, right? Correct. And shaking my head on the radio doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Well, yeah. So I better actually answer out loud. Yes, that's correct. I did catch, there was a brief exchange when Commissioner Stenninger said on a recent county meeting, and then we're going to expand the jail. And then Amanda Osborne, our county manager, said, prove it. Because basically she was saying, where are we going to come up with the money for that? Because I think the sheriff is confident. He thinks it'll cost maybe $5 to $7 million to construct a 50-bed medical facility, and other estimates are, $15 million, right? I know. Once again, all of it is lovely talk of what's needed, and that's why we've been well, let's step back 5 or 6 years. We didn't have a capital budget to even have a conversation of what's needed. Now everybody needs something. Now all of a sudden we have a little bit of a capital. You've got $5 million a year, and so once again. Yeah, everybody has their hand out. So no, that's part of what we'll be looking at on the capital projects, and that's why we brought it to the commission, and that's actually why I even said on the capital projects that no, this $15 million for that needs to be relooked at because it's a totally different project, and all these needs now need to be determined. That's the point of it, because we do also have the judicial center that was first 85 million, whatever that number was. So now we're gonna have to whittle that way down to about half, right? If the 40 to 50 range, and then once we settle on, let's just say it's 45 million. Once we settle on that, it still then has to be determined, okay, is this our number one priority, this 45 million to that, or, okay, now we have it, we're going to wait 5 years, it'll be worth probably 60 million by then, but this first 5 years, these are more important or whatever. No, none of those decisions have been made yet. Okay. We're finally still at the fact finding of, well, what is it going to cost to expand the jail? Where is this rec center or event center, going to be? The judicial center whittled down to a more manageable number. and then be able to present to the public, this is what we want to do and why.
All right. As you said, the money's going fast. It's flying out the door.
Oh, yeah. It's one of those, I've even done it myself. I've had some really big weekends and everything as a small business owner, and I'm looking at the checkbook going, gosh dang, and man, spend a little coin extra, and next thing you know, you kind of smile and go, oh, that wasn't very smart because the old wallet's looking a little thin again. But that's just normal.
Well, you've got 4 other commissioners out there to help you out on the panel. So, yeah.
Well, that's the biggest thing. We want to 100% have those facts. And then there was some disagreement on the architects on this judicial center. And this is why we had to pay the money. It's a big study, and that's what it takes. And now we can present it. This is what we want to do. But they first gave us the old Cadillac, and we got to whittle it down a little bit to the work truck, but it still has to be functional.
Oh, and then we're still looking at a secondary access, or at least a study for that, right?
We are studying that because there's different proposals, everything from the air cart to, instead of the air cart to the hospital, air cart and just going more of the shale mines all the way over to or to that highway, the Jigs Highway, or maybe it's farther. What would that be? Farther
the Hamilton
east?
Stage?
Maybe Hamilton Stage, or maybe even farther east the other way, because maybe Spring Creek will go there. That's part of what we're studying is...
Where's Spring Creek going to grow to?
Yeah. In my mind right now, it's growing more towards the South Fork Jigs area, so that would make more sense, but I obviously haven't studied, and I could be wrong.
Well, and that's another important point, too. Spring Creek Property Owners Association, it's private homeowners, they're just about built out. So you're talking about just the whole valley where the development's going. So, yeah. Interesting times, John. Did we get to all of your topics today? I was just looking over here. Let's see. I know crickets are on the march. We got some road closures.
Let's go over the crickets real quick, too.
Okay, let's do that.
Before, we didn't really have a budget to even battle the crickets, but they were also so hit and miss. But now, the last couple of years, it's obvious they're here. We are actually actively out baiting. And this is the totally bizarre part that's totally changed. We have a governor that actually listens. So the state is actually doing some work on state grounds as well, and they're spraying. And then we actually have a great relationship with Josh Nichols and the BLM, or excuse me, the Forest Service. And even the local BLM, we have that relationship now that we're working with them on spraying and baiting on federal land. So we are finally attacking them as a group. And now are we perfect military operation attacking them? Gosh, no, but we are actually actively trying to do something about it.
At least steer them away from the population centers, right? That's the problem.
Correct, especially in like the hospital or something that...
I know, people are already stressed.
Thing,
yeah.
Wow. Both last year and this year, it's almost like they repainted the place because it's so thick and covered. It's like...
I know. And we just have to consider being thoughtful about how we present this, because if you get kind of hysterical and you do stuff on social media and then it gets generated else, we lose. People lose on real estate deals, we lose on tourism. There are a lot of impacts to things when you think about it, they're not poisonous. Yes, we had some accidents. That's bad. Agriculture impact, that's bad, but it's not life or death.
Correct. Yeah, they're a disgusting animal, but boy, they're big enough. If they were venomous or bite you or anything else, yeah, you're right. They're the
scariest video games come to life.
No, they're not. They're just smelly, and they secrete and poop everywhere, and they're disgusting. But it's usually short-lived.
Right.
The big, huge masses, about a week and a half at my house. Now I still have some, and I'm imagining in another few weeks we'll probably have another slew of them coming through again. But normally you don't have that million of them in your area the whole summer.
Or nobody would live here if that were the case.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
we would have a dire emergency, kill the whole budget and spend it all on bait and try to do away with it. But keep in mind as well, bait is still poison. Spraying is still poison. I mean, other than spraying Dawn soap on everything, but even that would still affect groundwater and everything else. So we can't just pour poison out on the ground, because next a Western watershed's going to be suing us for groundwater contamination or killing off the crows that eat the damn crickets that are now poisoned. So, I mean, we can't just... It does have to be well thought out, and I really think we're doing that at the moment.
Thanks, John. Anything else before we send you on your way today? Appreciate you being here.
I think we covered most of the stuff, so we'll be back in a few weeks again.
All right, sounds good. John Karr is our Elko County Commissioner in between meetings. The next meeting will be next Wednesday in June, and we'll get you caught up on Elko Live then on KELK. Thanks so much for joining us for today's program.